Colonization wasn't discovery. It wasn't civilization. It was theft on an industrial scale. You were taught that empires built the modern world, that they brought roads, schools, and order to places that lacked them. But what if that story is a carefully crafted lie? What they actually brought was a global system designed to do three things: extract wealth, erase resistance, and engineer dependency. And here's the crucial part. Once you understand how that system truly worked, modern poverty, global inequality, and even many international conflicts stop looking like accidents. They start looking like the intended outcome of a very old, very deliberate plan. The history of colonization is usually framed with comfortable words: exploration, trade, cultural exchange. This framing is deliberate. It's designed to soften the edges, to make it palatable. Because the moment you call it what it was, organized theft enforced by violence, the entire moral story collapses. Empires didn't arrive asking for permission. They arrived counting. They saw resources, not people. They saw profit, not civilizations. The narrative of bringing light to dark corners of the world was just marketing for the largest, most brutal heist in human history. So how did this system of theft actually work? It followed a repeatable, almost scientific formula applied across continents. First, declare land empty or unused, even when millions of people live there, with complex societies and cultures. Then redraw the maps, carve up continents with straight lines on a piece of paper, lumping together rival groups and splitting apart unified ones, creating permanent instability. Next, dismantle the local economies. Replace diverse, self-sufficient agriculture with vast, single-crop plantations designed for export only. Why? Because a nation that can't feed itself is a nation that can't fight back. Then comes the core of the operation. Extract raw materials like rubber, oil, cotton, and diamonds for almost nothing, ship them back to the colonizing country, and then sell the finished goods like tires and textiles back to the colonies at massively inflated prices. Finally, criminalize any form of resistance. Label freedom fighters as terrorists, cultural preservation as savagery, and any attempt to reclaim autonomy as a threat to order. This wasn't chaos. This was cold, calculated policy. And what was actually taken? Colonizers didn't just take land. They took everything. They took gold, silver, and diamonds, ripped from the earth. They took rubber, oil, and spices. They took human beings through slavery and forced labor, treating people as commodities. They took knowledge and culture, banning languages in schools and replacing them with their own. They took self-governance, dismantling existing political structures and installing puppet leaders who would serve the empire's interests. And most profoundly, they took time, generations of lost development, innovation, and progress that can never be recovered. Europe didn't rise because it was inherently smarter or more industrious. It rose because it siphoned the wealth, labor, and potential of the rest of the world. But even that isn't the part of the story they try. Hardest to avoid. The favorite defense you'll always hear is this: yes, some bad things happened, but they left behind infrastructure. They built roads and railways. Let's be clear about what that infrastructure really was. Those roads were not built for the local people. They didn't connect villages to markets. They connected mines to ports. They connected plantations to ships. They were built to get stolen resources out of the country as fast as possible. Those railways weren't for citizens. They were for soldiers and cargo. Infrastructure wasn't a gift. It was a pipeline, a tool of extraction, not development. Praising colonizers for leaving railways is like praising a burglar for leaving behind his crowbar. Now here's the part the textbooks and history documentaries almost never admit. This is the turning point. Colonization didn't just steal wealth for a few centuries. It permanently restructured societies to remain extractable. Even after the colonizers officially left, they granted independence but left behind a trap. New flags went up, but the economic system stayed the same. Countries were now locked into producing cash crops for the global market instead of food for their own people. Foreign-owned corporations continued to control key industries, sending profits overseas. and when the chains of direct rule were removed, they were replaced with the invisible chains of debt owed to the very same powers that had plundered them for generations. The theft never stopped, it just changed its paperwork, and this leads to the darkest reality of all, the one that's hardest to accept. Modern global inequality is not a failure of former colonies. It is the successful, intended outcome of colonization. The underdevelopment we see in many parts of the world wasn't a mistake or a side effect. It was the entire point of the project. Why? Because weak states are easier to exploit, divided populations are less likely to unite and resist, and a population kept in poverty provides a source of cheap labor for global supply chains. The poverty and instability in so many nations today is not a sign that they failed after colonialism. It is the evidence that the colonial project succeeded beyond its architects' wildest dreams. That's not history, that's continuity. If you think this sounds like something from the past, just look at the world today. Ask yourself a few simple questions. Who primarily exports raw materials like cobalt, coffee beans, and crude oil? And who primarily sells high-tech finished goods, pharmaceuticals, and software? Who controls global shipping, finance, and insurance? The map of global wealth and power hasn't fundamentally changed. The language has. We call it global trade, foreign investment, and development aid, but the underlying dynamics are hauntingly familiar. Colonization didn't end, it just rebranded. Empires didn't civilize the world. They invoiced it, and the bill is still being paid today. The biggest, most persistent lie ever told about colonization is that it's over. Thanks for watching. If this changed how you see the world, consider subscribing for more.